Hello and welcome to the Roker Rapport Podcast in association with VAUX Brewery. Today we've got a very special guest that needs absolutely no introduction. Joining us via the medium of the internet is former Sunderland captain and cult hero, Mr. Lee Barry Cattermole, to give you the full title. How are you doing, Lee? Are you well?
Thank you, mate. Yeah, all good. It's good to speak to a familiar voice.
No, very much so. We're just talking off air there about Holland. How are you settling in?
Yeah, it's like I was just saying there, it's been a massive change. In the first week or so was a big buzz. You're almost like you're on a holiday, everything's new. But then when things settle down, I think I've been here. I came home for a few days last international break, but I've probably been here 5 and a bit weeks now, straight off, and I'm back home in the next international break. And looking forward to that because obviously it's just so different in terms of the day to day. Just there's not many English where I am, and then just even things like setting up Wi-Fi, setting up bank accounts. There's so many different little things you need, which you don't realise at the time. You think you just set a bank account up, and then I'm having to go everywhere face to face just to get points across, really. But no, it's been great, and the club I'm at have helped me settle in great. And the football's been spot on, and that was the main reason for coming in. Not like I signed a 3-year deal or anything like that, where it's quite a big commitment. You know, I'm looking at it till, what is it, May the 5th, I think the season ends, and it's another 7-8 months. So it's a challenge which I wanted, and it's something that I just felt was right for me.
So I'll start with a nice easy one to begin with. You were at Sunderland for quite a while, shall we say. But who was your closest mate, if you can choose one, throughout your time at Sunderland, and why?
Well, it's a difficult one, that, you know, because I've obviously had a lot of very good teammates but obviously the spell I played with for a long time. Obviously, Titus Bramble, who came up when I was with at Wigan, so that was nice for Titus to come up a year after. Well, obviously Phil Bardsley, Andy Reid, Anton Ferdinand, that was the crew at the start, and then obviously Shazy and Wes came, Seb Larson came, Craig Gardner. I've had some cracking teammates, and they've all been spot on.
Torture's one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a tough one, but we've had some great characters there, and I felt when we stayed up for 3 or 4 years running out, I felt we had a nice strong group with, like, obviously Shazy and Wes, myself, Seb, Bardo. You know, we had a good strong group of lads there. We've had so many good lads, and it's been some fantastic times over the years. But yeah, you know, things change, and for each other, really, you know, there's different reasons why people change and why people leave, and everyone's got their own reasons. But unfortunately, that's where football is, and life in general, really.
So we'll rewind back to right when you first came to the club. Obviously, you had a really good season at Wigan. You had played under Steve Bruce, so there was that connection between Steve Bruce coming to Sunderland, which made it obvious. But you had Borough connections as well, and it seems like a long time ago that you weren't a Sunderland player. But did you ever have any doubts about joining Sunderland because of, you know, connections with Middlesbrough, or just anyone else interested or anything like that?
Yeah, no, it didn't even enter my head, to be honest. I'd obviously left Middlesbrough and gone to Wigan, and had such a good year with Steve, and just felt I really connected with him straight away. And I think it was the first time when you leave a club from being like an academy graduate into a first team, and then when you leave and go to join in as a first team player somewhere else, like I was at Wigan, suddenly you get treated as a bloke straight away, and you think, you know what, I was enjoying how he was treating me. I would have liked to have stayed another year at Wigan, probably, like, looking back now, in terms of if I'd have had another year with Steve at Wigan, it probably would have been better for me at that time. Like, looking back now, I left for a year, then came back and pretty much lived back where I was from for the next 10 years. So, but no, the decision was there. Obviously, like, Steve sold the club brilliant to me, which didn't really need selling. I think Sunderland was on come off the back of obviously the Keane and I think Ricky Spray's years, and they managed to stay up. And then obviously Steve got the reins, and obviously Ellis was there. He had some money to go and spend, and I think he wanted to really create a strong, aggressive team, and we obviously had full houses, and it was an exciting time to be at Sunderland, and we obviously started the season really well. And I think I got a knee injury after about 8 or 9 games, which was really disappointing, because I come off the back of a good under-21s tournament in the summer, and then you're out for 4 months or something, and it just takes your season out of you. And I think that's the biggest thing looking back now, is the amount of injuries I had when I was at the club, and you're trying to play with, and you're coming back from the injuries. It takes a lot out of you, and you know, at the time you don't realise, because you're always confident you can affect games, and you'd rather be on the pitch yourself. But yeah, like I say, the club was fantastic when I first signed there, and it was a no-brainer to go. You know, I was playing at Wigan in front of 15,000, and suddenly I'm up at the Stadium of Light in front of 46, and yeah, it was another step in my career, which all came very quickly.
Talking about that first season, you did mention, obviously, I think you got an injury against Liverpool, but when you were fit, sort of before that injury hit, and after, when you came back from being fit, you did have a really good sort of pairing with Lorik Sana, which may have been unconventional at first, but How much did you enjoy that particular partnership, and how much did he individually help you become a better captain?
Lorick was great. He was brilliant around the place as well. You know, he had a real big presence. He was a great guy, and he set tones every day in training. He really wanted to train hard, and I think his knee was too great at the time, but you know, he was always putting himself out there, and he was sticking his body on the line every day. And I liked it because obviously Lorick had a big presence on the pitch, and not that I could go and notice, but I could feel I could really get around the pitch a bit and sort of enjoy myself. Knowing Lorick was if you look at the amount of players I've played with through the years, I think he was the real natural centre midfield player who I enjoyed playing with. Obviously, Jan Mbia was another good one, but you know, it's nice when you're playing with real natural sort of central midfield players, because they just always seem to be in the right place when if you go out of position or whatever, you know, they've always got your back, which for someone like myself when I was younger, especially when you want to get around the pitch a bit, I obviously played with Jordan a lot, Jordan Henderson, that first year, and he was the one who was then on the back of me playing with Lorick. He was the one then who was probably getting around the pitch more than me, and I was having to sort of hold the middle of the pitch a bit more, which, given I was only a year above him or whatever, you know, it's something which I think a young player probably needs, to have that older head around him, which can just help him through the game.
I think the first season year, although you did have those injuries, you did really establish yourself as, you know, one of our key players. But the season after that actually started really difficultly. I think it was Birmingham and Wigan. You got sent off, and I remember the Wigan game. I was actually there. You looked really, really devastated. But you did come back from that. But how difficult was that period, and what was said to you in the dressing room between management, players, and how did you get yourself out of that period?
Yeah, it was a funny one. Yeah, the first one, I didn't think it really bothered me. It was the second one that really hurt me, because suddenly, I think I ended up making 5 tackles, and I was sent off I got booked 4 times out of the 5 tackles or something ridiculous. But I remember the second one, I actually went off to the gym on the night and just ran on the treadmill, and I just didn't know what to do. I was just running on the treadmill thinking, Jesus, what's going on here? This is bad. You know, I'd obviously just been given the captaincy, and I've been sent off 2 out of the first 3 games. So again, it was another test in my career where I've always been capable of knuckling down, and not that I wasn't knuckling down at the time, but, you know, I've been capable of coming back from things and, you know, showing that strength of character where I was desperate to do well. I was desperate to prove I was the right person to be captain. You know, I wanted to lead by example. I wanted to get us right in the middle of the game, and, you know, I was obviously probably too keen to do well, and I think that's something I've always had, which can work for and against me. I've always been really keen to get a mark on the game, and whether obviously now the game's changing all the time, but back 10 years ago, you know, that was a big part of the game. We always talked in the dressing room about first pass, first tackle, be really aggressive, and, you know, listen, that's something which was difficult at the time, and it didn't probably help the manager when I look back now. If it was a young player, and I was 31 and there was a young player in the team getting sent off, you'd be devastated, you know what I mean? But it's something I did, and I had to deal with, and thankfully I managed to come back from that. And, you know, and you want to keep playing the game the way you do. I got sent off, 7 times or whatever early on in my career, and then I've got sent off once in the next 10 years or something. So it's something you've had to learn, but then you get that calmness on the pitch. The older you get, the more comfortable you get with the game. So yeah, like I say, that was difficult at the time. But I think the only defence I give myself was I was always trying to do it for the right reasons. You know, I was always trying to be a better player or have more impact on the game. And yeah, it was a mistake I made, and I had to come back from it.
You never want to shirk a tackle, let's be honest.
Yeah.
When it comes to, obviously, Brucey, you did have a really good relationship with him from a playing perspective, professional perspective, but he obviously left the club sort of 2.5 seasons in, and Martin O'Neill came in. Now, there's a particular moment, I think it was the Manchester City game on New Year's Day, where he kind of came on the pitch and did the whole Jimmy Montgomery thing. You seem to have a good relationship with O'Neill as well.
Even my relationship with Brucey was always, he never shied away from telling me what he thought of me if I'd let him down, you know. It wasn't a friendly sort of relationship. Yeah, we got along. We probably both had similar principles towards the game, but he gave me a dressing down many a times, and I never got let off lightly with anything. You know, he fined me when I got sent off, and told me what he thought of me in his office, which was obviously was even worse when you like the manager and you've got a lot of time for the manager, to feel like you've let him down and see how hurt he was. That was the hardest thing for me. But yeah, Martin came in, and obviously that come on the back of the incident with Bentner, and that was out of frustration. That was the first time I'd lost a manager, you know, obviously with Brucey, and that was the first time I'd had a manager who'd been sacked while I played for him, and I was absolutely devastated. You don't know what to do because you think you've let someone down. But yeah, listen, that's obviously the whole squad at the time, and we'd lost the derby, and I think that was a big thing for us. But no, like you say, Martin came in, and that was difficult because I obviously had to face up to that with what happened there. And then obviously, I just got my head down, trained, played. And what I liked about Martin, he left his players alone. He trusted them. He let them get on, and he didn't give you too much information. I seen a thing with Emil Heskey the other day. What was it? I think he was on Soccer AM, and he was saying how he enjoyed Martin in terms of like just let him get on with his game. And I was probably the same. I didn't need a manager to come and talk to me, and I got my head down. I train, and if the manager likes what he sees, great. And if not, I've got a way of going about my job. How I feel is the way I approach every day. So. But mine was, I really enjoyed mine. People have different opinions, but I loved him and his staff. And yeah, they were old school, whatever, but he was demanding, he had good energy about him. And again, mate, it was another good manager we've had at the club. And, never take away how good it is to stay in the Premier League because it's such a tough league. But yeah, we had Martin, and obviously that was a great game, the Man City game, though, wasn't it? Like, if you look at that, how much spirit we showed that game, and then obviously the goal at the end, was like unbelievable goal, really. Just to chop it round hearty like that was unbelievable. And like I say, I think everyone was out on the feet at the end, and I think that's all Martin wanted from his team. It's a bit like Bruce, he wants everything you've got, and the lads certainly were giving him that.
Talking about the Man City game and people being dead on their feet, I went over to Sweden to speak to Seb in April time, and we touched on that. I think he had flu that day, didn't he? Passed out in the middle of the pitch, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Some performance. But talking about good performances under O'Neill, one thing that always struck me, and you sort of touched on it a little bit before about the 5-1 at Newcastle, but what people forget is that the game after that under O'Neill, when we went back to St James's, there was a particular moment when it comes to, I think it was the first 30 seconds, you went straight into a tackle sort of immediately, and it felt like, not that it was a badly timed tackle, I felt like it left a marker, like we weren't going to be bullied this time. Was that always in your mind to do that?
Yeah, 100%. I think on the back of the 5-1, that was obviously the only other time I'd been there. Only the time I'd been there as a Sunderland player. So obviously we'll go on there, and I remember the dressing down we got off Brucey after that game about not leaving a mark on them, not turning up in the game, not showing them we were there to. You've got to win your battles, haven't you? You've got to get yourselves Absolutely. In the game to start with, and you do that in the first 20 minutes, and then when it calms down, you can sort of, hopefully you've got the better players and the better tactics to go and win the game. But to start with, I just wanted to make sure, it was a big game for us on the back of the year before, and but yeah, I think on the day I thought we were brilliant that day, and I think Scholler equalised later on. Sessegnon get sent off second yellow, did he?
Sessegnon got sent off. Yeah.
I think he might have. It was an elbow, but it was right in front of me, and I think he hit the guy's chest. And he's gone down holding his face. So that was disappointing at the time. But I think that was the biggest turning point in the sort of the spell over the last 10 years for derbies. I think that was the biggest game in terms of turning the tide and stopping what made the 6 in a row or whatever. I think that game was important as any going back there.
Very, very much so, and I 100% agree with you on that. I think it was Bent obviously scored the penalty that day, but it really felt like that was a...
Yeah, it was a great pen as well, that for him. That's one thing he did, Nicholas, to be fair. In the big games, he stepped up. I think he did the same against Man City.
City away, yeah.
I think he enjoyed the big games, and that's obviously... You should enjoy every game and turn up in every game, but some players really do thrive on them big games, and that's one thing we got out of Nicholas that year.
Very much so. Now, obviously, there's so much to touch on, and there was some really great moments, underneath O'Neill. But Di Canio came in after that, and I think, some players didn't have great relationships, some did. But I suppose one thing I've noticed from a lot of people that I've spoken to over the years that played under Di Canio was that he was a good coach, but his personality and maybe his approach let him down. But how did you find him when he joined the club?
It's a funny one for me because I think everyone wants to ask me about it. But I honestly didn't have any sort of relationship or contact with the manager, so I really can't comment on that. I did get some things off the guys at the time some lads were enjoying what he brought at the start, enjoyed a bit of the pre-season. I had an injury when he came in, and then I went back for pre-season, and he had a meeting and just said, look, obviously pre-season's a time where we all need each other to get fit and work first and foremost for yourself and for the team, but there's obviously different players who are going to move on, and some players will stay that's just totally normal at that time of year.
Yeah.
So I was sat there on the back of a knee injury thinking, perfect. I probably tried to play for about 6 weeks with a medial for Martin, and had a couple of injections, and it just wasn't going away, and I had to have the operation. So I was sat there first day of pre-season thinking, right, yep, perfect, that'll do me. I kept myself right. I was in over the summer, and I thought, well, I've got a great chance to go and show the manager what I can do, type of thing, and why I've been a player here for a few years, and then left the meeting and got pulled off the physio and said, have you spoke to the manager? And I was like, yeah, just had a meeting. He said, oh, well, you're not allowed to train with them. And I was like, all right. So that was the first, that was the only contact they had, really. I wasn't allowed to train with the team, and I just went and did some bits on my own. And then obviously I think there was a couple of options. I could have maybe got out and went on loan and things like this, but for one reason or another, they didn't get sorted. So I had to, but that was a time when I look back on my career and I think I really worked hard in that time. You know, I didn't get too disheartened. I just made sure I just wait for your chance, and because it'll come. Because whether it was going to be at Sunderland or somewhere else, I had to make sure I looked after myself. But that was a funny time in my career. I was having Monday to Friday work and having weekends off, and it was just like it was a strange one. But like, I don't think that sort of stuff really happens now anymore. You know, but it was quite popular back in the day that things would happen like that, where managers just didn't fancy players and you had to take a back seat, which was normal, you know. Whether it was personal or not, I don't know, because honestly I didn't have a relationship with him. But then after 7-8 games and we haven't won a game, I think the window shut and I had to go back into the squad. I don't really know what had happened, to be honest, but obviously, yeah, it wasn't a successful period for us, but everyone was very excited by that appointment. I think if you look from the outside, I think it seemed to go down really well with the fans, and he was obviously a big character and quite, you know, flamboyant or whatever, and you know, it was all very exciting everywhere, but probably the training ground. So it was a bit of a funny one, but honestly, I can't really comment on that other than my own experience, which was very little. But you know, obviously on the back of that, I think, did Gus come in after that?
Yeah, I was going to say, like on the back of that, I think I don't know whether you agree, but I think, you know, arguably you played your best football under Gus Poyet. Yeah,
well, I absolutely love my football under him. Like, he's as bigger influence on my football as anyone in terms of learning the game and learning more about my game and positioning and, you know, angles with the ball and when to release passing, when, you know, just a lot more defensively, much better. Yeah, just I really enjoyed the way I felt on the pitch playing for Gus. I was always thinking about different situations and different scenarios on the pitch and where I had to be, and yeah, he helped me probably get me thinking more like, you know, I'm learning about the game here, which, you know, football was always quite physical and you know your own game, but then suddenly I played for Gus and suddenly you're playing big teams and you're not. If you look at the Man City performance with Martin O'Neill, it was like backs to the walls, edge of our own box, just constantly 80% possession probably for them, and we're just running and just showing great spirit to stay in the game, which is what you've got to do to get results. But then suddenly we were having like Chelsea had come to the Stadium of Light and we've got the ball, and they're thinking they can't get the ball off us here, and we're pretty comfortable offering nice angles in your own half. And suddenly I think the fans started to realise, you know what, we're getting somewhere here, and the fans started appreciating different patterns of play at the Stadium of Light, which they probably hadn't seen. And let's not, you know, we kept a lot of clean sheets as well. He wasn't soft by any means. We were defensively really strong, and we probably lacked a little bit of pace in that team from being a really good team. When you look at, you know, a lot of the top teams now, they have really quick wingers, and we probably lacked that at the time. But I really liked what Gus was doing at the club.
Do you ever feel like, in hindsight, Gus was maybe let go a little bit too easily?
Again, I think the period when he did go, I think I was injured for a little bit at the time. But yeah, you know, again, I don't know too much about what was going on at the club, but, you know, it's hard to say, isn't it? Obviously, if it was just results, then it was results, and the club have made a decision and we've stayed up. But I just felt the club, in terms of the understanding of the team and the way we were training, the way we were playing, I was just seeing something different to what I'd seen before, and I was really enjoying it, and quite surprised at the way his career's gone afterwards since, to be fair. I thought he'd be back in England, or, you know, he did a great job at Brighton, and then but yeah, no, he had loads and loads of good things going for him, and his staff were good as well. They were great around the place as well. So yeah, that was a good time for me. I really enjoyed my football there, but he was great for me personally, and I know he was for a lot of other players. And experienced players as well who probably enjoyed what they learned from him as well.
Talking about the time under Gus Poyet, there's a few games that stick out, mainly against Newcastle, and we've already touched on the 6 in a row. Was there any, I mean, I've seen the celebrations and you definitely enjoyed the wins we had over them, but was there any particular game out of those 6 that sticks out as your particular favourite?
Nah, not really, to be honest, no.
All right, weren't they?
No, any win's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I know the first 3-0, I think I was potentially going to Stoke the day before, and I think that was Bridges' first game.
That's correct, yeah. Bridcup
yeah,
played,
something like that, yeah, because I remember I think I watched it from home or something like that, because I'd been down in Stoke the night before, so that was a bit of a funny one. But even that there, like, you look at that, I think I had a year or so left on my contract, and I turned down a chance to go to Stoke when I was getting a 4-year contract, because I believed what we were doing at Sunderland at that time, and that was all it was. I was at an age where I was learning. I was 26, I think, and I just thought I really enjoyed the style of play we were doing. And yeah, I knew he'd got his man in Liam, because that was his player he had at Brighton, and I could understand why. But I had a good enough relationship with him at the time to say, listen, if this move doesn't happen, I'm enjoying coming to work every day, and I'll fight for my place. So, I think that was testament to what I was seeing from Gus, you know what I mean? And the squad we had at the time, I just fancied us to finish the season well, and I believed in the squad I was part of at the time, and I think that was the biggest, obvious thing for me to say, that's how much I believed in what I was doing with Gus.
How close was the move to Stoke? Because it felt like nailed on, but then it just seemed to change last minute, and there was never really sort of reasons given behind it.
Yeah, no, I think it could have been done, but I remember speaking to Ellis on the evening as well, and he said, what did I want to do? And I told him I didn't want to leave, and he didn't want to lose me either. But, I think they were offering half decent money, and it could have been done. But I just didn't. I think in football, you've got to go with your gut. I really do. And I've sort of done that my whole career. I've never really. Sometimes your hand gets pushed and you have to leave. That probably would have happened in the Canio situation. But I just didn't feel I had to leave at this time. And I was enjoying learning. I was really enjoying training. I was going to work every day. And I was enjoying the sessions. I was thinking I'm becoming a better player here, and that was the main thing. And then if it was at the end of the season, I went somewhere else. I just felt at that time, I didn't think it was right for me. Yeah, so that was that really.
It really was the right decision as well, because as we've already touched on, I think you did play your best football after that. I think as a fan, you looked at Bridcut coming in, and as you said, it felt like it was Gus's man, but you did oust him, and it came to the point where you became probably his key player. So it definitely was the right decision.
Yeah, no, I think obviously at this point I'd probably played in the Premier League for 8-9 years or whatever, and so I was comfortable in the Premier League, but I was trying to improve different areas in the game, and I learned off Liam as well, because obviously he was coming in, we'd probably train on the different teams every day, so I was obviously watching him in training as well, and what Gus was getting from him. I thought if I could add that to my game, I thought in other areas of my game I could excel and probably be better than him in that respect, so I could stay in the team, so that's where I was sort of learning off Liam and obviously off the manager. I was listening to everything the manager was saying, and I think that's one thing I've done throughout all my career, really. I've always listened to what managers want, and if you look at certainly my career at Sunderland, I've changed the way I've played many a times just to get in the team, and it's easy to a manager to come in and say, I don't like the way he wants us to play and I'm off now, but I've always tried to just get in the team, and that's the way I've always approached it. So I'd love to have had a manager for 6-7 years, but like a Pochettino, where you have the same manager for 5-6 years, and you can really, if you think you agree with the style of play and you agree with what he's telling you, it must be an amazing feeling. But unfortunately, I didn't have that for that length of time.
I'm probably putting you on the spot a little bit here, but what was your best moment as a Sunderland player? What's the thing you go to when you think about your years at Sunderland?
Do you know what? Again, because there's so many different chapters because of the manager situation. It's hard to say, but obviously that escape with Gus and the teams we played at that time was incredible. Obviously, I think I loved the start of my career with Brucey. I felt I was really playing well then at the time. I felt fit, and then obviously I had a bad knee injury, but yeah, I loved that period under Gus when we finished the season the way we did. I remember the game down at Tottenham, and I think my old man said actually there's someone's made like a YouTube clip of them last 7 games or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I think.
there is. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, it wasn't you, was it?
It wasn't us. No, I'm not that good at editing stuff like that, but I have seen it. Probably more times than I care to admit.
It was only the other week as well. My dad was over here and he said to me, you should have a watch of the Miracle with
Yeah, that
with
was
Gus.
it.
And it was. I remember that night in the changing room at White Hart Lane. We were sat there and the lads were like, "Fuck, well, what are we doing here? Like, well, we can't just go out like this. We need to make sure come the second week in May, when the season finishes, you've got to just say to yourself, you haven't given any more. You couldn't have done any more for us to stay up. And when we left there, did we lose to Everton or something just after 1-0?
We lost 1-0. It was Wes scored an own goal, I think, but we'd actually played really well in that game, and it kind of felt like things were going against us.
We shouldn't have lost any of them games, even the Man City away. I think Vito spilled one in later on.
Oh yeah, heartbreaking that.
But that's what I mean. We were playing these big teams, and we were going out thinking we were tactically so ready for the games, and we were just like Old Trafford. Seb's finish was unbelievable. Obviously, the Chelsea game.
We had a 32 pass move as well, where I think it was Fabio hit the bar, I think, in that game against Old Trafford. It would have been the best Sunderland goal that we ever scored, I think. But sadly, cannon off the crossbar.
But then even if you look at the next season there, though, you come back and I think we had 4 loan players, and we didn't sign any of them, and I think we wanted all of them.
Alonso, Barini.
Yeah. Key.
Yeah, very much so. Callback went. Off the top of my head, the Bardo went as well. Bardo went that summer.
Yeah, so things like that, when you finish a season the way you do there, and the connection you've had amongst the group, to come back and then not have that again, or not have that as your baseline, to say, right, that's the standard now, how can we add to it? We only need 2 or 3. We then rip it up again and start again, and that's where you don't get the same trust amongst the group, just naturally, because people are new to the club. And I've just seen now, obviously, moving clubs, and you're walking in dressing rooms, you're not showing yourself in the same way you would when you're 2 years in or a year in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking around the place here thinking, who's he then? What's going on here? Who's the main man here? What do we do here? You're looking around the club and thinking, how do they go about things day to day? You don't want to come in and start upsetting people and whatever, but you leave your mark. So that's what I think the most obvious thing now, stepping away from it, is you look back and we're constantly having new players coming to the club, and that's difficult for everyone. The lads are already there, and because when you're there as a senior player and you've got lads coming in, and you're thinking, you don't want to be too hard on them too early. You're trying to let them settle in, or then they're settling in and not pulling away. You're thinking, Jesus, have they got this easy? It's just a bit of it's a complicated thing. It's quite hard to say, really. But I just felt the way we finished the season, sometimes I would have loved to have started the next season with the same group.
Yeah, and it just seemed to cycle over, didn't it? And it was like, you look at certain players went, I think we've touched on some of them already, and just totally different characters, players came in afterwards, and it did feel a lot of the times like we were changing manager and changing personnel on like a 6-month basis.
Yeah.
It's difficult. But...
Yeah, exactly. And that's hard. Well, for the players, obviously we had some great senior players at the time, and we're like sat with each other, and we're just trying to regroup the players again, trying to get everyone pulling again and going again. But obviously it's changed for you all the time, so it's difficult.
So from a fan's perspective, it seemed like Big Sam was about to take the club on to bigger and better things, but then Moyes came in and sort of, from a fan's side again, sort of sucked the enthusiasm away. Did it feel like an overly negative time?
That period for me was obviously a write-off with the hip injury. So again, another manager I didn't really have too much involvement with. But again, very similar to the Gus era in terms of finishing the season as strongly as we did, to then come back and lose again with probably 3 or 4 of your main players, or not get them over the line from a loan to a permanent, was massive. In terms of obviously losing Yunus Kabul was huge. He was such a big player for us at the time in terms of helping the French boys. I think, like I say, in terms of coming over here to a new country, first and foremost, you find out who can speak English and who can speak it well. And we've got a German lad here who's helping me every day in terms of when a manager passes a message on to the group, I straight away approach him and say, like, what's he saying? What does he want from us? Or, just making sure I'm doing the right stuff in training. But so for Yunus to leave the club was massive. And then obviously Jan and Villa, Wabi Kazu didn't really play much after that. And these were all massive players for us the year before. Obviously Canio we had a load of drama with the potential move to Everton, was it? So these are all tough things that go on in the club. And unless they manage really well, it's going to affect people. You know what I mean? So it was a frustrating season for us. We obviously lost our Premier League status, which was massive because we'd worked so hard for a long time to remain in that. And listen, obviously losing Big Sam to the England job.
It's massive.
I did at Middlesbrough. We lost Steve McLaren to the England job, and the next it's huge for the club. You know, he's obviously got the England job on the back of how well he'd done here and his previous club. So you know, that was massive for us. And it was obviously a tough season, wasn't it? It wasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't look like we had great atmosphere, and I think it was such a high the year before, and I would have loved to have started the season with the same manager and the same players, but things change, and you know, Sam got his dream job with England, and unfortunately that ended the way it did. And you know, I don't think Sam or Sunderland probably benefited at the time, which is disappointing. But so that was it really. Yeah, it was a difficult one, but you know, David Moyes worked very hard, but obviously we just didn't have the stuff to stay up, and we didn't have the spirit or the fight to stay up, which we'd shown in previous years.
You mentioned about the Kone situation. Again, I can only speak from a fan's perspective, but we'd grown to sort of love this player, almost cult hero-esque, really, really fast. And then it seemed he was on his way to Everton. There was pictures of him posing with Everton fans. How do you deal with that as a player when, I'm guessing you were gone in that period?
He's obviously been massive success when he first come over, and then we got offered big money for him to go there. We expect him to be going as well, but as a player, you mind your own business, you know what I mean? But for one reason or another, we don't know. But you know, the deal didn't get done, and I don't know how much it was affected him, but I'm sure he was disappointing. But like again, that's between Lamine and the manager and the chief executive at the time. That's not to do with the lads and the teammates. Yeah. We just go on the training pitch each day, and obviously if we see Lamine's not happy, or we try and help get him happier. But you know, you don't know how much that affects the player. But obviously played a lot with Eunice the year before, and I think that would have been more probably comfortable for him at the time because of obviously the language, and Eunice was a big character, and I think he really helped them boys. So,
were you surprised we let Eunice Kabul go?
Yeah, I think Eunice was happy at Sunderland. I think, but you know, obviously I had an option to go back to Watford where his family was, and again, that's something which it was a big loss for us. But if that was right for Eunice, you know, you can't take that away from him. But he was a big player for us, and like I said, at the end of that season was one of the best spells of my career. Then you know, you're on holiday in the summer, and you're thinking, right, we can go and have 2 or 3 years now with this manager. We've got a right chance at cementing ourselves as like a mid-table, top half Premier League team, and then obviously that doesn't happen, and the next 2 years go the total opposite to what you thought they would have went if we'd have kept hold of someone with the experience of Sam and his like recruitment in terms of the players he gets. I just felt it would have been right, and obviously the connection with the fans was there for everyone to see. I think they all took to Sam, he took to the fans, and he can't, you know, he's got the England job there. That's an unbelievable for him, and it's timing, isn't it? It's timing, and unfortunately for us, it wasn't the right time to have that stability there.
The season after, obviously, relegation from the Premiership came along, and it was, I don't want to touch on how difficult of a season it was, but in terms of that particular season as well, George Honeyman was given the captaincy, and I think I've interviewed George myself. You've obviously got a really good relationship, I think, as people from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
You were seen as someone who was very much a really good captain for Sunderland. A lot of people spoke of your abilities as a captain and really spoke it up, and sometimes George didn't really get, maybe he got a bit of a raw deal sometimes. Did you always feel like George was a really good choice for the leadership captain? Do you have any comment? Do you think he had maybe a bit of a raw deal sometimes?
One thing he chucked himself unbelievably at the role. You know, when you're given the players we have in the squad, even in the last season, George was a great captain. You know, he took meetings when they've got likes of myself, Aidan McGeady, Glenn Louvren sat there. You know, they're 3 experienced players there, and George is taking the meeting and explaining to the group what he wants. And I thought he was unbelievably impressive, and he handled it great. You know, I think the club itself was changing in terms of it tried to change its identity a little bit. You know, the new owners were putting demands on George to speak at meetings and promotion stuff, and he always put himself there, and he done great with that. And I think in any sport, when you're the leader of the group or the captain, or in cricket, whatever it is, there is more pressure because you don't just think about yourself anymore. You start thinking about the group. You'll be leaving the training thinking, is everyone all right? Is everyone happy? What else can I do? Should I sort of lunch out for the team? Should we do this? These are all the things that start going through your head where when you're just a player, lads can be quite selfish in terms of that's how they're preparing to get themselves to perform the best, which is right, because if everyone performs the best, it's happy days. You're going to have 8 out of the 11 really perform on a Saturday, and that's what you want. But no, I thought George was different class, and he is a captain. The way he approaches training, he led by example. And if you look at the squad when Jack took over, I think we had 12, 13 players, and George was head and shoulders in training every day, driving the team on. And I think Jack just seen that, and I think he just thought, you know what, this is how I want my team to play. George has shown us every day, and he knows what he wants. George is driven, and he's got his rewards now with a good move to Hull as well, because he's obviously playing the Championship, and he suddenly went from just coming into the team at Sunderland to suddenly being club captain at a really important time. And I thought he'd done amazing, and he's a good mate of mine, and he's I know he speaks to Bally a lot, and he speaks to he speaks to myself. I know he speaks to Big Shazy a lot, and he asks questions, he takes information on, but at the same time he's his own person as well, and he's a good lad. He's an intelligent lad as well. So I think he was the right choice at the time, and I think it's nice as well for the younger players as well to have like a captain around them. I had different groups with, and I think it's important now, like at the club where you've got like this, you say Duncan Watmore, George at the time, Gucci, Max Power, Charlie White. These are all players of like the same sort of age, like mid-20s, and you're like, they could be at the club for 3, 4, 5 years.
Touching on your last season that you had with us, so last season going back, it felt like I'd waited about 8 years to see a Lee Cattermole goal, and I think I've seen 3 in about a week. How much did you enjoy like your last season at Sunderland?
I did. I enjoyed it, obviously, after the window shut, because I had a great relationship with the manager, to be fair. He knew I was really disappointed, and I was just not enjoying being there. Like, obviously the Championship season killed me, and then I went back in, but it's a difficult situation, you know what I mean? I had a contract there, and I was playing in League One, and I felt I shouldn't have been playing in League One, but I should have been, because I was part of the teams that went down. Hey, listen, it was so tough, and you don't realise until you step away from it how much you've been through. But the manager was great with me. I explained that all the way along how I felt about my position, and he just said, look, well, just keep giving me what you're giving me, and I'll keep supporting you. And if you ever want to speak about anything, just come and see me. And I had a great relationship with him. And I just said all along, like, look, once this window shuts, I'll give you everything I've got. And I just try to do that the best I could. But the game's so different there to what, like, even here now, we played PSV the other night, and it's back to feeling like I'm playing the Premier League. The way you've got to set up for the game, you've got to be compact, you've got to be a bit more defensive in your approach. I think once you go to the Championship and League One, it's a lot of times just end to end. Everyone's just saying, well, we'll beat you this week, or we can beat you, and there's not that much control in the game or too much thought about it. And I just felt that, especially when you're getting older, I just felt I was seeing the game different to sometimes how we're playing, but I managed to adapt my game again, play on the second balls. I was getting forward more, and I just try to work my way through the season and get as much out of it as I could. And it was hard again, because you're travelling totally different. We were flying to Manchester 5 years ago, and now suddenly you're doing bus back from Plymouth. So, and I never once turned my nose about any of it. The hotels are different, the food's different, but I don't need that to help me play football. I enjoy playing football wherever I am, and as long as the spirit in the group's right. And that's one thing that Jack and his staff have brought. They brought a real new approach, and making sure everyone's working hard and doing the basics, and that's a nice foundation for any group to have that. And then on the back of that, then you can start talking about your tactics and how you're going to play. But first and foremost, you have to have the respect amongst each other around the training ground. But no, I enjoyed the year as much as I could have enjoyed it. Obviously, the trips to Wembley were great. I would love to have been a different outcome, but I don't think, looking now, I don't think the club was ready to go into the Championship and compete. So I don't think it's the end of the world if we can go and do the business this year, and you've got 2 seasons of not, losing many games, and you've had 2 seasons where the fans have enjoyed them because you've been right there challenging to succeed at something, not just hanging up. And I've come here, and we're a different team here. We're more of a mid team in the Eredivisie, and it's going to be a difficult year. We've lost a couple of games there, and I'm having to get my head around losing again because I only was part of a team that lost 2 or 3 times in the games I played last year, over 30 odd games, so it's hard to take losing games, and I think the club's got into a position where to stop losing games, and if we can carry on that and go and get promoted this year, the club's got to be in a better position to compete in what is an unbelievably hard league now, the Championship, and given where we're at as a club, it's going to be tough to get through that league as well. But so I don't think, it's disappointing to not go up. But Charlton have gone up and done well. But it's a tough league.
Barnsley have struggled. Yeah, Barnsley very much struggled. I've got 2
Well, that's what I mean. And it's a playoff final, isn't it? Where everyone's absolutely devastated. But if we'd gone up, I might have stayed. I don't know. But it was tough to take. But hopefully, in come 7-8 months' time, the club go back up and they're in a better position and stronger for it.
One of the things I did want to ask, and I suppose I have to touch on it, and it's just sort of came to my mind just now, but that Portsmouth game at Fratton Park, what are your memories of that moment?
Oh, with the fan?
Yeah, because it was nice to see that as a fan, because, as much as it was a explosive moment, it really felt like the first time in a few years I'd seen a bunch of lads really working together, and it was like you were looking after each other as mates, and it was great to see, in a sense, as almost funny as it was. It was a great thing to see.
It was a great performance. I think that away from home to Portsmouth, where we're hearing loads about how intense the atmosphere was and this and that, I didn't think the atmosphere was anything. Given where I played at Sunderland for so many years, the atmosphere wasn't any. Yeah, it's been a good atmosphere over the years, but I think the way we just nullified the game and just completely controlled the game, I think we kept the fans quiet and they had nothing to cheer about, to be fair, or get off the seats about. We were in control all night, and I was really proud of the lads that night. We all played great on the night, and it was a proper performance, obviously, given the situation with Granty at the time and his family, and I think that added to it as well at the end, because no one was aware of that. And there's so much went on that night, and it was a shame we didn't go and follow it up at Wembley. But for a group and players to go away in a semi-final of the playoffs, it's the first time I'd done the playoffs again, another new experience. But leading up to that, we're speaking to lads like Granty and stuff about your approach to the playoffs, and everyone says it's better to go away first and come back home second, but we obviously had to do it the other way around because of the way we finished the season.
So I suppose my final question would be, you had 10 years at Sunderland, there's very much a legacy there, but if it was up to you, what would you like your legacy to be remembered as?
I'm not someone who looks back too much, to be honest. I try not to think too much about how I want to be remembered. I know every day when I went through the gates at Sunderland, I tried to train as hard as I could and be the best I could. But I was proud of what I'd done there in terms of how I approached every day. And I always felt, whether I was being naive or what, I'm not sure, but I always tried to believe in what we were doing at the time. Whatever manager it was that came in, I always tried to follow him, and I always tried to, follow my teammates into believing we were a decent team and we could do all right. Yeah, that's the thing. Well, you have to keep striving every day to, believing in what you're doing, and I think that's what I try to do all the time, and that's what I like about how I feel in terms of football. I always feel quite confident in the group, and again, that might be naive at times because we might not have been anywhere near where I believe we were at, but there were certainly times when I think we had good teams and we were competing at a very good level, but there's all reasons why things don't develop or whatnot. But the spell we had in the Premier League was a long spell, which I think you can see now how good a spell it was when you come out of the division, how hard it is to go back in, even for other clubs. Look at how long Middlesbrough have been out of the league, and Aston Villas and Stoke will find it hard to get back in, and it's a tough league to get back into the Premier League and then stay in it, obviously. So obviously I was legacy and stuff like that. It's not something I'm really, really bothered about, to be honest. I know what I give there, and obviously that now is something that's closed for me, and I think that's the nice thing. The more interviews I've done since I've left, I've sort of got a bit of closure on it for me, because for a couple of months I didn't really speak about it. I just got my head down. I was keeping myself fit, waiting for an opportunity like I've got now to. But since I've come over here, the amount of people who've got interest in Sunderland's unbelievable. Obviously that's what the Netflix brings, because everywhere I'm going over here, people are like the other clubs. When you go to the other clubs, the other fans are asking about Sunderland till I die and this and that. And, I'm thinking it's the worst season I had at the club, but it's been it's a massive club, and I think that's the biggest thing for me looking back now, is you're part of something that was really big, and you don't realise at the time, because every football club you've got your level where you got your training ground and you've got your canteen staff, your your cleaners, your kit ladies, kit men, and all your physios and your backroom staff, and that's the same at every club. Yeah, we had a couple of extra bodies maybe compared to where I am now, but that's your core of your football club, and we always had a really good core. And like some of the times we've had there at Sunderland over the years with the even little trips away as a group, and it's been quality. All that's players and staff all in it together, and I think that's what you look back on I look at the people who are there now, and there's not many players who I've spent too long with there now, but it's the staff who were there, who I've got great memories of having some quality times with, you know what I mean? And I think that's the big thing, which you realise that it was such a big football club, and it was just nice to be part of it for so long.